Hey Canucks fans, the legend of the Sedins continues to grow. I'm Clay Emo, I'm at Canuck Clay on Twitter, I'm at Clay Emo on Instagram. I'm the founder of the GLCPC, the Good Looking Canucks Positivity Club, and this is my Canucks take, all in one take. It's Clay's Canucks commentary for Sunday, April the 19th. I hope you're doing well, that you're staying safe and you're staying healthy. Don't forget tonight, it's Sunday, so that means we're jumping onto YouTube for my semi-weekly actually, twice a week, my semi-weekly live stream on YouTube at 10 p.m. tonight. We'll talk Canucks, we'll talk about the NHL, we'll talk about COVID-19, how BC is apparently flattening the curve, which is really good news, and most importantly, a chance to check in with each other, make sure that we're doing well. So please join me tonight, 10 p.m. on YouTube. Okay, Canucks fans, what I want to talk about today is a brilliant piece that Elliotte Friedman of Sportsnet wrote today. Actually, part one was today, part two is going to be on Wednesday. My guess is there's going to be a part three as well. I'll explain why. It's an oral history of the Vancouver Canucks 2010-2011 team and season. Obviously the most successful team in franchise history, one game short of winning the first Stanley Cup in the franchise's history. And today, in part one, he talks about how the team was built. Basically on the back of the Sedins and Luongo and Kesler, Burrows, and Bieksa. I'll get to that in a second. On Wednesday, it's going to be part two, he's going to be talking about the actual season itself, the regular season, and of course the playoff run. And then I'm guessing there's going to be a part three, although this isn't confirmed, a part three maybe later on with the aftermath. But today was part one. And I love these oral histories because you have a chance to really be free in what you present. You have a chance to tap into dozens of people and their insights and their experience and their memories, and then they can corroborate each other's stories or they can go, contradict each other's stories. But whatever it is, it presents a very comprehensive view of a certain time or a certain era. And for this one, it's that 2010-2011 Vancouver Canucks franchise. So I love it. They interviewed, of course, former players, former coaches, former GMs, front office staff, athletic staff, assistant coaches, whoever it is. There are dozens of people that they interviewed for this story, and I love it. It took me about 15 to 20 minutes to go through it. It's probably going to take me longer to digest it. So that's why I'm going to break it up. Over the next 3 days, I'm going to talk about elements of the story. Today, I'm going to talk about the Sedins. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about Bieksa, Kesler, and Burrows and Luongo. And then on the third day, on Tuesday, I'll talk about I'll talk about Gillis and Vigneault, the coaching staff, and then management. And then what we'll do is on Wednesday, part two will come out. Then I'll talk about that either on Wednesday or the Thursday right after that. So basically, I'm going to break up today's Sportsnet article into 3 days because there's just simply too much to cover. So let's talk about the Sedins. We knew that the Sedins, we know how much they are and they were, but they are still beloved in this city. They are, number 5 and number 6 players to have their jerseys retired at Rogers Arena. We know how good they were on the ice, winning scoring titles and Hart trophies. And we also know how good they were off the ice as leaders in the locker room and just as importantly, in the community. So there's no doubt that we love the Sedins and they're legends. They're two of the most talented, classiest, humble guys to ever play for the Vancouver Canucks, and that's why we love them so much. But even I learned a few things about the Sedins today from Elliotte Friedman's article, and I've been a Canucks fan for all 45 years of my life, as we know, especially in the past 15 years and past 10 years since I've been a season ticket member. So I learned a few things that I want to bring up, and I'd love to get your comments on them as well. We knew that when they got drafted in 99 and they came to the team in 2000, that they had it rough in their first year. They weren't physically developed, they weren't mentally developed, they weren't emotionally developed, and they got knocked around a little bit. They didn't get the ice time that they were used to. They probably didn't get the power play time that they used to. But they talked about how in that first year, as they tried to earn the respect of the coaches, their teammates, opponents, how they used that as motivation. And they came back in the second season even stronger, third season even stronger, and then it progressed and kept on going. They were never, ever undeterred in their determination. And then there's a funny story how we were just, the mid-2000s coming out of the West Coast Express era, Naslin, Bertuzzi, and Morrison, and then, of course, Kesler starting to come up through the ranks, and Burrows and Bieksa. So it was a really, really neat time where the West Coast Express were looked at as the older guys, and then you have all these younger guys coming in. And then they made a point, a quote from Ryan Kesler. He basically came to the locker room one day and he saw that he wasn't listed on the first line anymore. They got bumped to the second line or whatever, and it was the Sedins. Actually, it wasn't even Kesler. It wasn't that the West Coast Express was the first line anymore, in that the Sedins were put on the first line. And that was kind of like a true kind of coming out moment for the Sedins from the standpoint of the rest of the teammates knew that how quickly they were developing into all-star caliber players. And then of course that happened in the mid 2000s, 2006, 2007, and then 2009, 10, 11 is when they started to really come into their own and lead this team and taking them to those consecutive playoff runs. So it was neat to see and neat to hear other players and coaches talk about the Sedins' ascension through the ranks of the Canucks locker room and the Canucks team on the ice. But two things that I really want to talk about that speaks to even more about how they were off the ice than they were on the ice. One of them was when it was time to negotiate new contracts. Their contract expired in the summer 2009. We know the story of Mike Gillis going over with Lawrence Gilman going over to Sweden to kind of make sure that they could lock the Sedins in for a new contract. And we know that the Sedins could have likely got $7 or $7.5 million, even, but let's say $7 million on the free agent market. But Gillis and Gilman sold to the Sedins, no, you got to stay here. We want you here. We're gonna spend to the cap, but to make us as competitive as possible, you might not be able to get your $7 or $7.5 million here. And they end up settling on $6 million, which is still pretty good, right? $6.1 million each, right? $6.1 million each for the two Sedins. But then the very next day, the two wives of Daniel and Henrik, in their name, but I'm sure it's with their husband's blessing too, they donated a total of $1.5 million to BC Children's Hospital. $1.5 million. That's a lot. You might say, well, they're making $12 million or whatever. That's a lot of money. $1.5 million, especially when you think that it's a pretty big percentage of their actual salary. Even you're saying it's $6 million a year, $1.5 million once, but in that first year, 1.5 combined the two, they're making $12 million. That's over 10% of their salary. So think of your own salary. Would you give more than 10% of your own salary in 1 year to a charity? Maybe, maybe not. But that just speaks to how big that donation was. And of course, you could say, well, I'm not making that much money, or they were going to make $6 million every year after that. And I get all that, but I think my point is that's a huge sum, no matter how much or how little you make. And the cool thing is that they point out in the story, it never came up in negotiations. And they even made the point that in some negotiations they say, okay, well, give me a little bit more, but I'll turn around and I'll buy a suite, or I'll buy a bunch of season tickets for underprivileged kids or charities, or I'll donate X amount to a charity. That never came up in the negotiations. So not only did the Sedins settle for $6.1 million instead of $7 or $7.5 that they may have gotten in the open market, but then they turned around and they gave a good portion of that away in charity the very next day or the very next week, whatever it may be. So that speaks to the Sedins' character and integrity right there, is that they didn't even mention the potential donation as part of the contract negotiations, even as the Canucks were trying to get them down a little bit. So that speaks volumes about their character. The other cool thing that they said in the story was actually T.C. Carling, who is a VP of Communications and admin of other jobs with the Vancouver Canucks. He said that when the Canucks were winning, especially if they won a game where the Sedins performed well, they would go to the gym right after the game to do a post-game workout. We know that they're fitness fiends, but to do a post-game workout to basically subtly allow their teammates to answer questions, good questions from media who's feeling good, right? Who's positive questions about the team's performance. But whenever the Canucks lost, the Sedins were the first in the locker room to stand up and to hold themselves and the team, but hold themselves accountable for the loss. So again, that speaks to the quality, the character, the integrity of these players. Basically, when times were good, they wanted to share the glory, and in fact, not just share it, propel other players in front of them to receive the accolades. But when times were tough, the Sedins went opposite, and they were basically the first ones to stand up and face the music and the tough questions. I thought, just a small part of the story today, but it speaks volumes, like I said, about their character. So that's what I liked about today's story with respect to the Sedins. It chronicles how they came up and worked their way up through the ranks in the locker room and on the ice as the first line players. Oh, one other thing I want to talk about is interesting. They talked about how they never said, we need this player, go and sign this guy, or put this player on our current roster on a line. They simply said, we want a guy who works hard, who can turn the puck over, and who can think the game. But they never named a player. They didn't say, we need a right-hand shot, we need a big guy, we need a small guy. And they left it to coaching staff and management to figure out who that would be. And the coaching staff and management were quoted saying they realized that the Sedins played well, or they like to receive the puck in this scenario. So the Canucks went out and tried to find players that would be able to turn the puck over in certain areas on the ice, and then be smart enough to get the puck to the Sedins, and then be smart enough to get to the net and make themselves open. Anson Carter had some success with them, and of course Alex Burrows had the most success with the Sedins, doing those exact same things, working hard, turning pucks over, and then going to the net. So I encourage you to give this article a read. It's outstanding. I'll link it in my description below. And like I said, there's a lot to cover, but today I just want to cover the Sedins. Their ascension through the ranks of the team, how they found players to play with them, and basically how generous they were when it came to charity and that 2009 contract negotiation, and then the fact that they were willing to share the glory, so to speak, or to put other teammates in front of them when it was time to receive accolades. All things that speak to their character and make them so beloved and so valuable to this city, to this franchise. So Canucks fans, let me know what you think. I said a lot there, and you can look at the article as well. And remember, it's a long article. I just want to talk about the scenes today. I'll talk about the rest of the article going throughout the week. But tell me what your memories of the Sedins. Did you know those stories about the sizable donation to BC Children's Hospital? Did you know the story about the locker room, the post-game interviews and things like that? And if not, tell me, does that surprise you? I'm guessing it doesn't, but I would love to hear your favorite Sedin memories and what about them spoke to you as a Canucks fan. Leave a comment below. I love to read, react, and reply. Subscribe if you like to. Like this video if you'd like to. Enjoy the day. Be safe. Be healthy. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. I hope to see you tonight, 10 p.m., right back here on YouTube for my live stream. Have a great day. God bless, and go Canucks go.